Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will, but if you need a little help with your assignment, you've come to the right place. It's Office Hours, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast, vodcast, featuring myself, DMO73, and I am joined, as always, by the please hope he thought of his intro by now, Paul Reisman. Okay. Now leaving a message after the beep, Mike Rants. And joining us tonight, our member guest is Tommy Rourke. Tommy, the ghost of Tommy Rourke, I should say. Tommy Rourke, welcome to the show. Oh, they're saying silence. Hopefully. Oh, yes. Okay. I think Rustin's saying silence as opposed to like your intro is silence. I not you. I'm talking about Paul. Before we get started, just what Paul's intro was too strong froze the stream. Hold on. Are we back? It looks to me like we're back. I hate. You can only hear Jeremy. Oh, hold on. Hold on, I know what's happening again. XSplit is trying to prioritize a different window. 1 second. Oh, man, the intro was so good, and then I have to undo everything. Hold on, guys. Gosh dang it. We'll be... Hold on. Hold, please. Jeez Louise. I blame Mike Rants. I blame Mike Rants 100%.
Patient.
There we go.
You've reached the voicemail box of Paul, the Shayla Shill Reisman. I can't come to the phone right now. If you would leave a message after the beep with your number, your social security number, and any cards you want to just give me for free, that'd be great. Have a nice day. Beep.
There we go. Oh. We're here. We should be good now. I've fixed everything. Everything's not broken anymore.
This was clearly a bit. This was not technical difficulties. This was humor.
This was totally planned.
So
we want people to think we're broken.
It's a great. This is how you be not serious and be an ambassador for the game by showing people how much fun you can have. End of podcast. Done. Okay, so
well played.
I've done it. So I do want to welcome everybody. As always, I am Jeremy Franklin, and I am joined by Paul Reisman, Mike Rants, and Tommy Rourke, our guest. If you are here as a new person joining us, we're happy to have you here. Just a few pieces of orders of business. If you like what we're doing here, if we make you laugh, even though we have stupid technical difficulties, consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to being all the perks, like getting access to the emotes, being able to join us on the podcast like Tommy is tonight, special roles on the Discord, everything else. At higher tiers, you can get other cool stuff like signed merch.
Ooh.
You can also just purchase this merch for yourself. There's links in the description if you're interested in picking up some of that stuff, or playmats, or making content for the channel. Right now, we're currently on a mission to hit 100 members so that we can get the new Lumia emote that you see here on the screen. And with that, tonight we're jumping in with a topic about how to be a Ruler School alumni in terms to representing the game in the community. This is something that we've seen a lot with people wondering how they can get started supporting their locals, or just in general in terms of the community, like how to act. Matt Seymour, get the gloves on. It's not Foul Wednesday.
$25. Do it.
I have to go away for.
Get the gloves.
Go get the gloves.
Be a good ambassador. Give the people what they came for.
Okay.
I am such a fan of this bit.
The best part of the bit pays. That's the best part.
I know. This is great. Jeremy gets money. Where we see the gloves. Matt Seymour gets a laugh. It's great.
It's free real estate.
It is free real estate.
Location.
Jeez,
Dance for
Louise. Dance, monkey, dance. Anywho, it's been a long time. I've had people.
And here, I was going to say, are you going to keep the gloves on the table?
No, they're here. They're right here. So
Hands are on the table.
I've had some conversations with community members in the past week, with some people who have left Force of Will and considered coming back, as well as some people who are new to Force of Will, talking about their differences of opinion or confusion about how to have conversations with people about the game, or like how to bring forward topics about the game. To one point, one person even said, like, someone has straight up asked me, Jeremy, do you ever have anything bad to say about Force Will? Like, brand loyalty is a thing, but also at the same time, have you ever said anything bad about them? And that got me thinking about this idea of, like, what does it mean to say something critiquing, or like what does it mean to be a constructive like supporter of the channel but still not be just a mindless drone, but also not be like negative? We've had similar kinds of conversations in the past about like being on the supporting brigade. Like, you can have negative opinions or you can have things that you disagree with, but at the same time, like, there's a way to approach those negative conversations or those critiques in a way that still shows support and still shows an overall passion for the game. And I think that's something that can be built up. I think that's something that is being built up in the community, but it's still something that can be talked about how to do that. And I have a lot of personal thoughts about it, but it's not 100% my show. So I would be more interested to hear what you guys have to say about that, or your experiences of being advocates in the community from your different standpoints and how you approach those things. And then we'll kind of cycle it back to there. And if you have any questions in the chat about ideas that you've had or stories you want to share or questions for us about this, feel free to let us know. That's what this whole podcast is about. So anybody can start. I'll just leave the floor open.
Cool. Who's up first?
That means someone has to start.
Paul, you start.
Oh, hey, Mike. Sorry, I missed your call. Yeah, I can come and get those meds if you need me to, man. I completely forgot them the other night when we were just chilling.
Paul, they missed the bit. Paul, they didn't hear the bit.
They didn't hear the bit? Oh, yeah. This is where you would put a bit, if you had one.
Correct.
And I do have something to say, though, and I just want to say this. Coming from... I'm gonna go from out here, and we're gonna come in, and we're going to land the spaceship of the topic, okay? So just follow me.
Trip.
You know, we can't land on the planet unless we're out here first. Otherwise, we'd already be here. So, I have a creative writing background. And one of the... I told you, we're out here. We're on the moon, and we're landing the plane, or the shuttlecraft, or the Borg cube, whatever you want. We're going to land it. But I have a creative writing degree. So the thing that you find out in creative writing degrees, you have to sit in like a big round of people, right? And they critique your short stories. And the thing that's always helpful is the acknowledgement that people say, like, we just want your story to be better. So we're trying to give you advice and ideas toward making your story the best version of itself. Okay, we're hitting the stratosphere. There's friction. It's coming in, okay? So when I think about criticism, I always think of it through that lens. There is a huge difference between constructive criticism, wherein you really do want Force of Will to be the best game it can possibly be, and so you're constantly trying to feed back in that regard. And then there's the other avenue where it's like, I just need to vent. I'm just angry. I'm going to emotionally try and destroy the game because I'm frustrated with it. And there's a range, right? And just like in my creative writing round of people in the workshop, there are people who just straight up hated my story and just wanted to tear it to shreds, right? When it comes to being an ambassador for the game, I think you just have to think about how much do I want this game to improve and what do I want it to become? Like, you actually have to take some ownership of it and have to say, hey, I want this game to be the best version of itself, or I just play this game, it's not that big of a deal. And both are fine, but there is a point where you actually become like toxic to the whole endeavor, right? Like, there are people in this game who truly enjoy it and do want it to be the best version of itself, but don't be that person who intentionally tries to tear it down.
Yeah.
That's how you be an ambassador.
Real quick, just to jump in, Visionary Gaucho talking about more product availability. I think we're seeing a natural increase in terms of that bonus percentage that's being printed as set increases have gone up. Speaking of set increases, in the link in the description right now, there you can go ahead and pre-order both mini set 2.5 and set 3 from Odyssey Games. They still have product available, including pre-release kits for set 3. Like right now, you click on the link, you can go buy a pre-release kit for set 3 from Odyssey Games right now. So that, in terms of your drive to want to make product availability happen, like, pre-ordering is a really good way to help convince them to print more product. I know that Odyssey, we were just at Odyssey Games this weekend, Paul, and Odyssey like got more boxes of Magic Stone War like after selling out. So like product print runs are happening. Like that happens. But it's just, I just wanted to point that out there, and before we got too lost in the minutia of today's conversation, to remind you that pre-orders are available for next couple sets. But yeah, I think that you're right there in terms of what kind of critiquing do you want to do, or do you find acceptable to do, and or even to listen to, and like you have to be really careful to balance that out, both in how you give feedback and what feedback you give credence to, because I think sometimes, like, there are going to be people that you meet as an ambassador to the game who want, from an outsider trying to convince them to play the game, they are going to want to try to tear the game down because it gives them some kind of meaning. And, like, I've dealt with those kinds of people when trying to show them the game, and, like, they're just not worth your time. Like, you just have to be like, okay. I remember clear as day, there was a guy, we were playing locals at Odyssey, at their old location, and we had like 10 people playing Force of Will for the tournament. And it was like shortly after a new set had come out or whatever, and there were boxes on the counter because Odyssey was pushing it a little bit heavier. And a Magic player came in and saw the boxes and started like very loudly like bashing the game. Like, it's like, who's playing this anymore? And I just turned around and I was like, hello, there are 10 people currently playing a tournament for this game. Maybe don't talk bad about our game. Right? And then, like, he felt really embarrassed and then tried to make it up to me by, like, doing a demo. But I was like, I'm busy. I'm not going to try to win you to my game because you very clearly don't want it. And so you're not worth my time.
Play stupid games, get stupid prizes.
Right? So I just think it's also important to, not only when you're talking about what kind of feedback you give, to represent that sometimes the type of feedback you receive can help you figure out whether or not it's worth your time to look at those people, or to like give time to those people. Mike, what about you? What's your thoughts?
Actually, I wanted to pass it over to Tommy because I don't think I've ever gotten a chance to chat with Tommy about things.
Oh yeah, Tommy has some very interesting perspectives.
I want to hear. Yeah.
Well, I think the number one aspect is just being like hopeful that like good things will keep going. Like, I understand like COVID's like obviously an issue everywhere, but like we have a tight community here. I'm not gonna like doubt anybody. I think we're all pretty tight. And when I first started the game, like me and my buddies, they introduced me to it, and they're like using similar terms like Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, so I kind of understood. And then when I opened the pack and I pulled It was a textless blue Blackstone from, I think, MPR. And I like freaked out, and they're like, "Dude, we haven't seen that before." And it was just the excitement of like opening a pack. I'm like, man, I can actually I like the art. Like, this is cool. And that was a good way to introduce. Again, the community is what kept me going. And people will say like, game's dying, game's dead, or they might not agree with me, but like I'm always hopeful that like even like good things get better. Like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh and all these other card games, if they have great sets, they just strive to be better. And I just think that's what Force of Will is trying to do. And it might not be as fast or in the ways that everybody wants, but I just think that patience is a virtue here. And we just gotta like keep pushing on, and I think eventually like more people will be like, oh, this game's actually somewhat successful. Let's give it a try. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good
100%.
points.
Very well said.
Vizieri Gaucho, I'm not sure whether or not it was Southern Hobby or YY. I know that
Probably not Southern Hobby.
I know I get emails from YY when they have additional product available, and I've been pretty consistently receiving emails like after a set's release from YY saying they still have boxes. So that's potentially where to take a look.
Can we talk about Steven's question, Steven Wells?
Yeah,
Because I think honestly, like our experience with Gate Ruler. By the way, we played a little bit of Gate Ruler this past weekend. I think you and I could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
a way to make the game less complicated.
I think we've done some work, in different timings. Obviously, COVID limited the amount of work that we could do. But this idea of talking about designing very straightforward, mechanically driven decks, where like you're introducing them to, they get to do fun stuff, but the core heart of the deck is not to be complex. The core heart of the deck is to give them like a taste of what that could potentially be, but ultimately it's designed to say like, hey, when you walk away, you're going to feel like you could sit down and play this game. Coming from the perspective of, again, Paul and I just played Gate Ruler and we got to try their demo decks out. They did a good job with their demo decks being very much that. Like, they were fairly straightforward. The game looks very complicated when you first look at it. Gate Ruler is, we deemed it as being, what did we say, like overwhelming a little bit when you first looked at it. But
the tiny text didn't help.
Yeah, the tiny text didn't help. But then when we sat down and like played through a game with this structured or starter deck or demo deck that was clearly just designed to say like, hey, this is something that's meant to just walk you through the rules of the game. We walked away after like 2 or 3 games, and then suddenly we didn't need to look at the rules anymore. Like, we were ready to go. And I think that there's a very real way to be able to do that in Force of Will 2. Like, you can build to teach. Like, I think that's one of the things that I've seen players get wrong is they try and teach a player with like a standard deck. Don't do that.
I can kind of attest to that sentiment because I've taught a lot of players this game, and I normally use, like a 20-card mini constructed deck with a pretty simple ruler. I got a friend of mine into the game who had played Magic before, gave him a Melgus aggro deck, like a Melgus SKL aggro deck versus my Valentina SKL, mid-range control-ish deck. And it was like, give them a piece of that, let them see how this one plays, and so they know, how the cards interact with each other. And it's a very simple way to do it.
Yeah. It's this idea of when I would do demos at conventions or everything else, I'd explain the rules, I'd play an open-handed game, and I would take them to judgment. I'd always have them judgment on turn 4. I would have them judgment on turn 4 to be able to explain it. Like, you can actually explain the core basics of Force of Will in about 5 minutes. If you have a deck that's literally just designed to show you the mechanics of the game. And I think that's one of the things that people sometimes get wrong or sometimes maybe overwhelm new players with, is saying like, here's this new Frontiers deck. Let me teach you how to play FOW. Yeah.
Wolfgang.
Yeah, that's gonna be very complicated because Force of Will decks, when you get into when you get into actual full gameplay, are very complex. But like, that's not what a demo deck is supposed to be about. That's not what a demo is supposed to be about. A demo deck is supposed to tell you, like, these are the rules of the game.
Jeremy, can I shill for a second?
Yeah.
Teach somebody with a Conqueror deck. Use your old cards. Make like mid-range or tempo decks that players can just easily adapt to. Give them Shayla and have them just play out mermaids that draw cards, mermaids that search mermaids. Just something simple and elegant for them to kind of see, oh, this is how you work a curve. Oh, I can hold this card back, and if I do, I can use this Shayla's Foresight, which has 3 effects from Shayla. It's just like you build a deck so that a player can understand it, but feel good about learning what the deck does by playing it. You don't want to just, like Jeremy with the demo deck, like you mentioned, holding the hand is very important because, obviously it's a new player. But once they've gotten into that, make sure the decks that they play after that demo are complex enough to where they feel good about the decisions they make, but not too overbearing that they're going to get lost.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you actually look at the Force of Will demo decks right now, they are such that when you and I are first sitting down to play the game and we play an open-handed game, I can explain to you the terminology, but the decision trees are very, very simple. And then as such, then once they're designed as such. So like, say we do that 5-second demo or 5-minute demo, and then we add to it by actually playing a full game close-handed. Those demo decks are very, very much designed that when you just look at them, you will know what you want to be doing. Even if you've just had that 5-minute intro. It's not like, well, go search for any card. Well, how do I know which card I want to search for? It's go search for an elf. It's an addition that the only thing it does is make my elves bigger. Like, oh, okay, cool. I want to make my elves bigger. Like, and you can build to that. And I keep FOW demo decks on me whenever I travel. Speaking of how we can carry that into this conversation, right? Like how to be an ambassador. Like build a couple demo decks, 20 cards, like Mike says, 20, 25 cards for each deck, like 8 stones, a very basic ruler, and just like have them available with you at all times and always be willing to throw down a demo. Practice a demo first, please. This is a very good idea. Practice doing a demo, practice walking yourself. When I do a demo, it goes in a few things. We start with card types and card anatomy. You'll notice this is very similar to the Force of Will 101 tutorial series in terms of order.
Show your own game, why don't you, Jeremy?
Card types and card anatomy, phases of the game, speed of cards, and combat. Those are the 5 things that I teach you very, very quickly, and then we start playing a game. That's it. And so practice being able to explain those things. If you can get them down to about 2 or 3 minutes, that's best. And then, you can sit down and do a demo in between rounds. And I've found myself doing that very, very consistently.
If you need a template for your deck building needs, I would go to forceofwilldatabase.altervista.org. Our fan database. And just go and look at the Faria Melga structure deck. Take that as inspiration. If you look in there, you have a very, very basic ruler. You have decks that thin the deck. You have cards that thin the deck. You have cards that remove things from the field. You have things that are bigger, that have flying, that have swiftness, that cheat cards into the field. So, I mean, that's the deck that I learned on. Basically, like when Jeremy first set me up with the game, this is the deck set he taught me with and just helped me to figure out, like, okay, how do you go forward from here? And it was really easy to understand. So just check it out.
Yeah. Just to quickly hit another couple comments. Vizieri Gaucho, to go back to your not worth my time comment. Like, let me rephrase that. Like, I think when you're being an advocate for a smaller game, there is an element of understanding lost causes, and not burning yourself up on them, like not burning yourself burning your energy on those, because that's time that you could be teaching somebody else who's maybe more interested, especially when you have someone who's coming from a game like Magic, who this player was in this context. It like I gave the man a demo, but like I could tell from the get-go when we were doing the demo that it was a sympathy demo, right? And so for me, this is the next step of advocacy. This goes into actually my next topic, is as an advocate for the game, you can do better work by doing more than just demoing. Like, do a demo with someone, learn their name, get them plugged into a digital community, follow up with them, offer them cards. Right? Like, that's to be an ambassador. That's more than just being a teacher, that's being an ambassador. Like, you try to, kind of like what Matt's been talking about, you make their entrance into the game feel natural and easy, but also exciting and minimally invasive, like, of them. Like, they don't have to commit too much to try something out. And that's what I mean by saying, like, not worth your time, because, like, when I give a demo to someone, I learn their name, I find them on Facebook, you know, I ask to find them on Facebook, I get them plugged into a community, we have conversations. And sometimes there are players where you're going to know right off the bat that, like, don't go chasing rabbit holes. Like, don't go chasing rabbits down all the rabbit holes, because you can get lost and burnt out, and it can feel really disheartening. And that's no good. I know that's why Mike builds so many Conqueror decks, is because that's how Mike likes to excite people. But I also know that
so many people into the game just by having 11 to 12 Conqueror decks on me in my LGS. It feels so good. Because I will say, with Conqueror, you get a huge amount of play, a huge amount of different decks that you can build, a huge amount of synergies that you get without being shoehorned into, oops, I could also play this and just win the game. Because nothing is built to just simply win you the game, except for Wolfgang, which will be addressed later on. But anyway, that's besides the point. No, but it's just very, I don't know. It feels good to bring people into the game by having them learn naturally. It feels good to have them, like, you can hold their hand a little bit if they have questions, answer their questions as you're playing against them, but at the same time, it's just like, let them read the card. Some of the cards are very self-explanatory. Build decks with cards that don't require them to sit there for 5 minutes and read the card over, looking at you, Satan. But it's just very, very simple to build a community, honestly. It's very simple to just think to yourself, you know what would make me feel a lot better about playing this game? Bringing it to other people, teaching other people. I was going to school to be a teacher before I went into business, and a lot of that core concept is still very much ingrained in me at this point, which is why I love doing what I do. I love being a part of the community. I love having a voice in the community now. Back when I was a nobody, I was still wanting to teach people this game, and now that I'm apparently one of the players that people recognize in this game, I get to, like, answer questions, teach them things. If a judge question comes up that I know because I'm not technically a judge, I can answer something and let people know what to do. I can give people ideas on decks. I love giving deck advice so much, to the point where I've almost thought about putting together a Patreon for myself to do deck techs. It's just like, it's so much fun for me to just be able to address people who share an interest, who share this love for this game that I've come to love so much. And obviously, going back to our initial point of being an ambassador and critiquing the game, I'm very vocal in things that I don't like about this game. Jeremy can attest to that. Paul can attest to that.
Yeah.
A lot of people can attest to the fact that if there's something that irks me about this game, I will make it known. And I will say to the community, hey, anybody else feeling this way? I'll say, hey, here's a way that I'm going to address it in my own personal way. Hence me kind of spearheading this revival of Conqueror, where my issues that I had with Wanderer, I'm like, I'm not exactly excited for where that's going. Obviously, people can be playing Wanderer, but I want to make something for the people like me. And it's just something that's so simple. It's just like, build it, and people who share your interest will come. And that's the biggest advice that I can give to anyone. If you want a community, if you want to make something happen in your LGS, be the one who builds it. We just got a new LGS that opened up down the road from me. Our guy currently isn't promoting Force Will, but he's one of the ones who brought it initially to Long Island. And I'm there to tell him, hey, game's not dead, by the way. We're still playing. I had somebody reach out and ask if he could play. I've got somebody working there who said, oh, yeah, I remember we used to play. I'll try it again. So we've got, like, out of the gate, 6 to 7 people that are initially saying, yeah, I'd love to play. And that's great.
Yep, and this is one thing that I kind of want to talk to Tommy about, is that one of the things that you can do to be an advocate for this game. I mean, we talk about doing demos, we talk about pack openings, we talk about those kinds of things. Tommy has a very unique way that he contributes to the community with his work with his I think roommate. If correct me if I'm wrong, Tommy. Well,
Yeah.
you guys make fun tokens and like things
Yes.
to Mike's gone. Things to make the community get excited and engaged. In that way. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about kind of what drove you guys to pursue that, or what that experience has been like to you, and maybe even how it's impacted your connection to FOW.
I mean, yeah. So I'll use this as an example. In AO4, when AO4 came out, I saw Gil Lapis, like, oh yeah, Gil Lapis is back. I'm happy, and like I'm seeing the spoilers, and they had the whole limit break concept, and I thought that was kind of cool and niche. Like, all right, this card does something, but if you have limit break, it does more. So which got me interested, and I went to go play it. So I got my product, and we're opening, but I didn't have like a physical like card or like a token. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to remember if I don't like have a token? So I'm like, I looked at my roommate, and I'm like, well, why don't we just make it? Like, it can't be that hard. And like, we went out and we tried formatting the cards, and we found a few instances of like other tokens that like weren't made or like weren't up to something we would try. So we like machine tokens, beast tokens, whatever the case was. We thought we could just make them like better or like something we would enjoy playing, which is where all this started originally, and that's how that all started. And it's just getting like, what does the community want? Like if let's say you have a machine deck and you make machine tokens, like what kind of machines do you just want to put out there? It could be like something funny or like something serious, like a Star Wars battle droid or something, like what does the community want? Like, because Force of Will makes stuff, but like, why can't we make stuff? You guys want some like a dragon token or something? Be like, hey, I want this made. It's like, yeah, we can do that. I actually just had a guy ask me for machine tokens, and I got excited, and I'm like, all right, well, shoot me the art. And he was sending me art. It's like, oh, I've been wanting to do this forever, but I lost my hard drive because my hard drive got corrupted, so I didn't have any of the files. And then he sent it to me over. It's like, oh, I can finally make machine tokens, and I got them ordered and sent to him. And the interaction of like, hey, I want this made, and then the customer being excited that someone's willing to make them for you or to help you with it, even if it's just for like a casual deck, nothing serious. That's my personal experience. I can speak on like my roommates or like anybody else.
Yeah.
But just like sitting down with people and be like, hey, well, what do you want? Like if you want a dragon token that's like green or like humanoid or whatever, like what do you want? Like I'm in this if you're in this. Like
right, yeah.
You're playing the card, not me, So you gotta enjoy what you're playing. No matter what the art is, no matter what the card is. That's just my 2 cents on it. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. And like you bring out this idea of this process that you started. I mean, was a way for you to connect with the community in a very different and unique and rewarding way. Like you said, like the excitement of being able to do some work with someone, and that to me is what like the reward of being a community advocate is, or a community liaison. Because the other thing too is you found a need that was present and you served and you got connected to people, and so I would imagine that was rewarding to you.
That's called business.
But now there's also something else for the community, and it's this like small building block, right? Like we're seeing more and more people try to take on the idea of content creation. That's another building block, and the more people put forward what they enjoy about a game or pursue the game or an element of the community or anything else in a way that is professional and casual and not casual, professional and passionate, but also respectful and like authentic. Like those things build on each other and build off of the work of other people and form new connections and put things together. Like the Ruler School Discord right now has, like, in the span of the past 3.5 months, has exploded. And we're seeing more and more people get in, but we're also seeing more and more people in the community, like, talking to each other and wanting to do more and, like, pinging ideas off each other and deck list ideas and everything. Like, we did something very small by start pushing the Discord again, or starting to form that community, and now we have this great thing. And I've spoken to this before. Thou is a tier 2 game. I don't think we'll ever be back to not tier 2. Like, I just think that's probably what's going to happen. We're going to sit there, which is fine. But with that, there's so much that we can do in that space if you put forward the effort. Like, the ease of being an advocate to this game is significantly more rewarding and easier to do than I think other games. But there's ways to pursue it in a way that is authentic, can acknowledge the good and the bad, and can leave a positive, lasting impression on people. Like, again, going back to that conversation I had with someone asking me, Jeremy, have you ever, you're just ride or die foul, you can't ever say anything bad about them. Like, that was something I got accused of. And I said, no, I have been verbally, like, critiquing, but
Yep.
my critique is always overshadowed by my passion and my enjoyment of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as an advocate, that's something we've had players who've tried to be advocates who forget how to do that, or just don't do that, or don't see themselves, see their negativity as a positive. Like, I'm having, the loud voice, the squeaky wheel, gets the oil. That doesn't really ever work. Like, it doesn't really ever pay off in a way that provides a person with a good experience. Because it creates an atmosphere of, oh, well, there's a bunch of shit wrong with this. Why would I want to commit my time to it? As opposed to, hey, it's not perfect, they're working on it, but there's so many other things that are great about it. Because what the difference there is, I'm still saying that there's things wrong, but it's the good stuff is always better. And that creates, that's human life, right? Nothing will ever be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it more of something that I think people are willing to take a chance on. So just think about that.
Josh, I don't think critique, waxing philosophical. I don't think critique is anti-love. I think
he's saying critiquing the game does not equal not loving the game.
Oh, that's true. Never mind, Josh.
Yes.
I totally misread your crap. It's right. It's good stuff. I'm so sorry. I just brain farted. Yes, Josh, you're absolutely right. Just because you critique the game, it's not from the place, like I was saying earlier, it's not from the place of, like, I just want to hate on the game for the sake of getting something out of it. It's I'm critiquing the game because I want the game to be the best version of itself. And you could boil that down to deck building. You could boil that down to trying to increase a player's skill. You want to see players get better, but there is a way of critiquing that is more helpful than not.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. I'm an idiot. Okay, I don't know why I'm on here.
I also think that there's
reading is OP.
Read your cards, Paul. God. Come on.
Reading the
RTFC.
we say is reading the chat
Reading the cards
explains the chat.
explains-
Reading the chat explains the chat. So I think, there's this idea of also recognizing when, Paul talked about the idea of a rant versus a critique. But I also think to this idea of knowing even when it's time to critique versus like almost like your rate, I guess your ratio. They always say like, 4 good things to 1 bad thing. Like when you're talking is a way to keep your attitude and your mentality and your projections more positive, is to try to have 4 good things for 1 bad thing. And so I think that there's some elements of, even when you're doing your critiquing, to just be careful, especially when you're talking to newer players, is like, check your balance. Like, how much are you focusing on the critiques when maybe it's not the right environment to be critiquing? I don't want you to lie, right? That's not what I'm saying, because that doesn't help. Because in fact, that's going to backstab you when people find out you're lying. But there's an element to saying, like, I don't think this person really wants to know about how I feel about X, Y, and Z right now. And no one needs a white knight. We're all adults here. I think that if someone brings
I'll
up
protect your opinion, milady.
I think that, if someone brings up the, hey, I've heard this or this about it, you can go, like I said, well, yeah, I agree that they can do some things better, or here's what they're doing to address that as far as we can tell. That's certainly true that FOW has had that history. But, and then you always, bring it back to making sure the balance doesn't stay in the negative. So it's a tightrope walk, a balancing act of doing all that stuff, but it's super rewarding. And it's also not very hard to get started. I think we've hopefully tonight given you some very cool ideas, whether that just be chatting up online on the forums, getting plugged into the Discord, making decks, how to make demo decks, how to run a demo, finding a need in the community and trying to serve that need. Making content, like,
we need more content creators, please. If you like making decks and putting them out there, do it.
Make some content. FOW is this growing world that is ripe with opportunity to have a positive impact. And the more people we have that serve as ambassadors or alumni, Ruler School alumni out in the world to kind of represent FOW, the easier it becomes to grow. I hear often people talk about like, oh, well, my locals, I don't have a locals, my store won't open locals. Well, first off, COVID, so that kind of makes sense. But secondly, like even post-COVID, can you find one other person to just go play Force of Will at the store every couple of weeks, once a week, outside of chilling at your house?
Or invite them over to your house.
Or
invite
people, find someone that and say, hey, you want to meet up at the card shop and jam some FOW? Like Mike said, if you build it, they will come. It's very surprising how you might get one or two.
The secret is, sorry, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's like you might get 1 or 2 people a week, or you might get one person every 2 weeks. But like, then that person brings someone, and then those people bring someone. We're playing the long game, and the beauty is that we're playing a game that we love while playing the long game, right? It's not like it's a chore to try to show FOW to people, because I genuinely love FOW. So I don't ever have a problem with it. And my hope would be that if this is something that you want to pursue, that it's the same. And then on the other side, if that's not something that you want to do, if teaching people is not your forte, okay, that's fine.
Learn.
Just learn, just continue to play the game then. You can do your part even just by doing that. And then again, go back to what we said before about like, how do you talk about the game? Like, even if you're not being super proactive about like trying to convince people to come, How do you talk about foul when people bring it up? Do you share your level of foul with other people when you're chatting about hobbies? Like, even things as simple as that are ways to be able to have a positive impact more than you might think. So.
Ooh, that's a good question.
What do I think? Oh, Matt Seymour, question for the teachers and alumni. What do you think Forcible needs to reach Golden Days 2.0? What will be the big here they come decision that will skyrocket the game into the new age? Obviously, it's not guaranteed to see influx, but if you worked at iSpy, what would I push? I would, if I worked at iSpy, what would I push? I would push for a US office for community organization, something that's in the same time frame, a time zone that can make decisions regarding printing and distribution orders and everything else. Like that would be what I would do.
Here's my 2 cents on that. Honestly, slow down combos a little bit.
Sure.
It's a very simple tactic. Back in the last Golden Age, we had big, explosive combo decks. We had like Gwyver Featsing was at its prime during this time, and that's one of the strongest decks ever printed in Faust history in its respective format. But it was just slow enough to where decks could eke their way around it. And they had a really significant answer to it in Gale Force that people sided in.
Yep.
So in order to kind of reap the same benefits of that, you just kind of need to have, control decks that are meant to stop the really fast combo decks, but the combo decks to be a little bit slower so that mid-range decks have a chance against them, because the mid-range decks will push out the control decks, and then you have that rock, paper, scissors push and pull, but not quite as oppressive as something like Featsing beats Wolfgang beats mid-range decks beat Featsing, which is just like, the matchups are like 90-10 at that point.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you on that. Absolutely. That I also agree with Rustin. I think COVID is like a floodgate that has a wave prepared to break through the moment we can get back to locals. Like we walked into Odyssey this past weekend, and like the people at the store were like, "Yeah, we can't make like take home decks fast enough to like give to new players who are interested." And I'm like, "Whoa, that's good to know." And like all of their product that they bought for local players is gone, like pretty much. I'm about it. I think we'll get there. More content creators is good.
Please, and thank you.
More opportunities. This is a personal thing, but like I wish I had some opportunities to partner with to get the eyes on the game with some higher end people, because the YouTube algorithm kicks small creators in the teeth. It's just
natural. YouTube very cool.
It's not. It's just I wish I had some opportunities to be able to do that. To collaborate with some more high ends. Obviously high end. Like I'm not going to reach out to like Markiplier. Like there's no point there. But like, you know what I mean in terms of like the other card game channels that are maybe a little bit bigger, or like Tolarian Community College, something like that.
Like Channel Fireball or something.
Yeah, Channel Fireball's all in on flesh and blood. They're not going to talk about foul. Matt is wondering what Paul and Tommy have to say. What would you guys do?
I guess I'm trying to decide what a golden age is, right?
Yeah.
Tom, you go.
What would I do? What would I change, like in the card game, or like with the company, or just like in general?
I think in general. Like, what do you think it would take to bring us back to that?
Well, I would agree with Mike Rant's like slowing the combo decks down, but yeah, I've played since SKL, so everything's a bit blurry to me right now. But I just think, like for the card game itself, like simplify, like don't make anything mechanically complicated. Just like a couple sets, be like simple but like very synergistic. I'm a huge fan of tribal support. I love tribal, so more like simple tribal support, which is also intuitive to new players. It's like, oh, if I have a mermaid, then this mermaid gets this bonus. It's very simple and easy to teach a new player if I have like new product lying around. And like, I guess I'll say from like the company's aspect, I'm sure they're doing what they can. But like, more Q&As, like more open like communication. Even if we don't learn anything new or don't get anything really out of it, the fact that they're willing to go the extra mile and be like, yeah, we might have messed up, but we're working on it, or we got this coming, or just like new advertisements or like whatever. As long as like the company is like talking to us, say, hey, we're working on it, or hey, this new stuff's coming out, XYZ, I'm a huge fan with like open communication. I'm sure they're doing all they can. That's what I would do. Like simplify the game, like simple mechanics. I love travel support, and like Q&As are really good ones, or like Reddit threads, or like general like, talking with the community.
I will say, to your point about like slowing down the game or making things kind of less explosive combo-y, I think when you're looking at Saga Cluster, Matt, you literally just brought it up in the comments. I feel like Saga Cluster 1 and 2 are that, like, in a way. I think that there's some elements that could be, we missed the mark a little. The Wolfgang combo is one element. Some of the speed of specifically My List Moojstart, like burn efficiency, a little bit we missed the mark in terms of relative speed for that.
We missed the mark a little bit.
I don't think that's explosive combo stuff. I think it's combo.
It's just a different kind of.
I think it's combo consistency. Like I think you're right there. It's combo consistency. But we've had this conversation before about like you're speaking to the idea of like making combos less explosive. To the idea of like, hey, here's this 92-step combo. I think if you look at Saga Cluster as a whole, like we have seen a pretty major decrease in that when you're looking at Saga Cluster outside of a few pieces of things. So, I think we're moving in the right direction towards that, which I think is why a lot of us are very hopeful for a rebranding back to the Golden Age for sure. Paul.
Yeah, I think all of that is the reason I'm like, I mean, other than like what Jeremy said and like small tweaks to gameplay mechanics that like Mike said, I'm like, I kind of feel like we're already there. I kind of feel like we're in another Golden Age current. I mean, this is something like Jeremy and I have said it before. Saga Cluster is probably the best set, or it might be this current set. I forget which one it was, but the last two sets have been the best sets in Force of Will's history, design-wise, period. And the way that it's interacting with Alice Origins is like a little wonky, and so like that's kind of
It's coloring. It's coloring people's opinions of Saga Cluster for sure.
Oh yeah, but you always got to take these in context, right? So like Saga Cluster on its own was designed with the previous cluster in mind to some degree, but also it's just going to stand on its own. And so I try not to hold Alice Origins against Saga because they're two totally different clusters. And so I see Saga Cluster as the best cluster we've had since probably Grim. Is that fair enough? I didn't blame Grim.
Or like early Lapis.
Early Lapis.
Or like early Lapis. Yeah, but it's that same kind of feel. Like it's definitely the same kind of game feel.
So I'm like, I kind of feel like we're in that Golden Age now. Like it's pretty good, pretty solid. I can't complain. I'm having so much fun with the game now more than I ever have. As far as the company, they're making smart decisions. Probably more communication. I mean, like everyone wants more communication, but you can even see companies like Konami who don't communicate super, super, super well. I would like to see us go in that direction though, and kind of like not live into that business practice because I think that just builds community, kind of like in the Wizard way. I would probably say a U.S. office, small tweaks to gameplay. I would say the promos have been amazing. I thought they're just fantastic. I don't know what more I could want from the game right now. Just keep doing it, and just make those small tweaks.
That was my excitement about all these promos. So hyped, dude. So hyped.
I just want more art to fill the database, the official Force of Will database. That's what I'm looking for. Me and the 4 other people running it, we're spending weeks and weeks just sorting the unsorted, like all the entire art. I love the art.
What about post-rotation if duels that aren't printed in next cluster? I think that we've seen stuff that's hinting towards that duels aren't going to get a reprint. in my opinion.
You got the Magic Stone of 6 Sages.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like Magic Stone of 6 Sages, I think points to the fact that we don't necessarily need dual stones anymore. I think that there are other elements too of like we don't have a ton of dual color support, and so the question becomes like if they introduce dual color stuff more, what's that gonna look like? Like I look to Wolfgang's Stone, in my opinion, as a good indication that we probably don't see duals reprinted if this design philosophy continues. Is the idea of like Wolfgang is a triple color ruler that had a stone printed for him to make sure that if you are playing his deck type, you are able to play his deck type, right? But it's not a generic stone for everybody. 6 Sage Stone missed that mark a little. A lot.
A little.
Yeah.
Just a tiny smidge, just a little bit.
But like I think again that speaks to that same kind of concept of like if you have stones that are more fine-tuned to better facilitate that deck doing what that deck wants to be doing, then you don't necessarily need to be so concerned about color based on the identity of that deck. And as such, you don't necessarily need dual stones. So we'll have to see.
Big prediction. I feel like dual stones will not be reprinted next cluster, but the cluster afterwards.
Yes. I would be fine with like dual stones rotate out of Alice Origins. Next cluster, no dual stones come back again later. But for right now, I don't think we're going to have them.
I think if I had to say the things that I'm not going to talk about Golden Age stuff because I just want to see the next steps of the company. I'm going to talk about that. I think we're going in a good direction with the mini set. I think the mini set has a lot of potential design-wise. But then I would also like to see some eventually we'll get to the point where we can start stretching our little I Spy tendrils and start saying, we're going to make an official manga for Grim Cluster or something.
Stop.
What?
Stop.
You don't want a manga, Jeremy?
Stop.
You don't want a manga for Grim's
No,
storyline?
I don't want, as much as I do, I want FOW to focus on card games right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I want us to focus enough so that we can securely start saying, let's shoot one small tendril out.
That's fair.
To start building.
Vijay,
because obviously we did all of the movie stuff and all of the that was way too much, way too fast.
Vijay, LGS stopped getting promos. I've heard about this from a number of different people. Make sure that your stores, including Odyssey had a problem getting a higher number of promos for a while. Make sure that your stores re-upped their license on the tournament reporting software that they probably haven't used for a long time because COVID. Make sure that their license is updated, and then email YY about it. And they're usually pretty good. YY does only get so many promos, but like the more people message them, the more that they can make sure that they're on the list and they can start requesting more and stuff like that. So that's my biggest recommendation there. But with that, we've hit the 1 hour mark. It is time for us to go for tonight. I hope this has been a wonderful conversation. Yes, TCG Meister. These have been great questions in the chat. I look forward to hearing more stories of you taking this stuff and taking it out into the community. Again, considering check out the Discord down below if you want to keep having this conversation with us in the Discord. Let's see. Yodes Gaming, I don't know. The TCGs are booming, and I don't understand why. Well, I also think that I'm gonna give a hot take on Flesh and Blood. I think Flesh and Blood and MetaZoo and Digimon are just being traded like cryptocurrency right now. I think Flesh and Blood maybe has a treasure, or seems to have a player base, but like MetaZoo and Digimon to me honestly just feel like cryptocurrency, buy stocks, trade, buy low, sell high. Like I just don't see that being like actually about the card games. But again, I'm not super digging into it because I'm focusing on FOW. But that's my take. So, again, we hope this conversation has been helpful for you guys. We look forward to hearing success stories or answering any questions that you might have. Check us out in the Discord. That's the easiest way to get connected to us. If you like what we did tonight, consider clicking that join button down below. Help us get towards that higher member count, get access to all kinds of cool emotes like the wonderful kikis that are being spammed in the chat right now. And then as well, be sure to check out the links down below to get the pre-orders for set 2.5 and set 3 through Odyssey Games. Right now it's $40 a box for set 2.5 and $90 a box for set 3, and they still have some pre-release kits available, like I said before, so check those out. And until next time, this has been myself, DMO73, and I've been joined, as always, by the answering machine of Paul Reisman.
Sorry, I'm landing my shuttlecraft as we speak.
The ghost, the trying to get a hold of the trying to...
There you go.
the trying to get a hold of Paul so that he can return his medicine, Mike Rants.
Ooga, 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 chaka, ooga, ooga, ooga.
And the ghost of our wonderful member, Tommy Rourke.
Thank you for having me, Jer. Been a pleasure.
And until next time.
Nuggets forever.
And until next time, this is us saying class dismissed. Have a good night, everybody.
Stop this.
Class.